Figured I'd try a corny title card like this game does. Anyways, welcome to Starbreeze's Syndicate, played on hard with no upgrades and no dart overlay. Right out of the gate, the PC version has good mouse input. No Excel or negative decel to be had here. If this is not the case for you, something is horribly wrong, and good luck finding another copy as this game is delisted everywhere. The starting pistol amusingly has no fire rate cap, so you can go ham with it. You can also sprint and shoot with it at the same time, but I didn't find this out until after I was done with the project. Dart in this game is the equivalent of slow-mo. It also increases your damage resistance and claims to boost damage dealt, but I find that last bit to be dubious at best from my own testing. That said, this first level shouldn't kill you outside this third gunfight right here. You'll be introduced to your first assault rifle. The Kusanagi is the gun you want to use, but never have enough ammo for. Secondary fire lets you wallbang, and the reload cancel window is generous. You'll most likely fall in love with it like I did when you first use it, and after this level you won't see it for about an hour. Audio-wise, it sounds beefy too, and like it's orgasmic to shoot. This might be the first time I saw a canted optic in a video game. Shame in this game, it appears to cut your damage a bit when you use it on this weapon. And the mag size is too small to be messing around wasting shots like that. Early on, the enemies drop quickly enough, but as the game progresses, the men get beefier and beefier, so it's not ideal. So, from my understanding, several senior employees who worked on this game ended up leaving the company during development, going on to form Machine Games. After this game flopped, even more packed up and left to join that studio, working on Wolfenstein: The New Order, and that came out about 2 years later. I've seen people say that Syndicate plays just like New Order, and I don't really agree with that sentiment. Outside the sound library for footsteps and a similar sprint animation, the games are pretty far apart. Syndicate operates around these three powers, and they regen by interacting with the score system, with the better you play influencing how frequently you can use your abilities. Wolfenstein doesn't have a 2-weapon limit, and Syndicate has no stealth sections. Wolf also is a significantly more polished title that doesn't feel jank to move around in, but that's neither here nor there. But this game panned critically, with complaints of too much bloom and not being long enough. I agree with the bloom, but the length doesn't really bother me all that much. If said score system was more prominent, I feel this game could have done a bit better. I have my own issues with this game, and I will touch on them as I get there. This room marks the final time you'll fight men that go down in one headshot. Savor it while you can. And if you want, you can retract the cryopods on each side by hacking the terminal. On that note, ahead is your introduction to the upgrade system, and I think this is super cool for how it's implemented. The perk screen is presented as this grid of options, and the game lets you pick whatever suits your fancy in any order, and all the options are very strong. You get choices like a flat 20% damage reduction, 33% more health, faster reload and weapon swap speeds, a 100% damage multiplier that ramps up based on your killing spree, double carryable ammo capacity, 40% faster power regen so you're just slinging out abilities left and right. The works, and they're all game-changing. They make this game really fun to play. It's such a better system compared to the usual skill trees giving marginal percent increases in things you don't even want. If you're ever struggling, pick Dexterous and Killing Spree. It solves all the issues I have at base. You become so strong, it's like, how can you even lose? It's enough to dramatically shift my opinion on this game. Now I just wish the Spread perk was part of the base kit instead. To transition to one of those problems though, you've probably noticed an abundance of chest-high cover by now. You won't see me ever really using any of it, because it's all lies. Your dude is too tall! Because of that, when you crouch behind stuff, you get hit anyways. It's not really a problem on normal and easy since you're pretty tanky there, but on hard, it's a huge issue, and it renders around 80% of the cover in this game unusable. It's bad enough that quite a few of the engagements you get into break down entirely, and force you to play super lame when the map designers clearly want you to be in the trenches with your enemies. Here's a cool gun though. This thing is disgusting, one of the better weapons in the game, when it works. The secondary fire lets you mark enemies, and from there, you can shoot around corners from safety, and it does very good damage unlike the majority of your kit. Even has a good reload cancel window. The Tar, on the other hand, is a piece of shit. This is the second worst gun in the game, right behind the revolver, and unfortunately, they force it down your throat for the majority of the runtime. Thing does no damage, has a non-existent reload cancel. This is huge, by the way, since in this game, when you cancel your reload, you immediately restart the reload if you did it early, and this is the one gun in the game where the ammo refreshes at the exact end of the animation, and it's just generally inaccurate. The secondary fire is a noob tube, and you'd think that'd be really effective, but it's not. Later on in the game, you can put 2 or 3 30 mics into men, and they just walk it off. And swapping between the fire modes is really clunky. This is all at base, mind you. With upgrades, it's serviceable and very accurate. Still won't fix the damage, though. Nothing will. While I'm here, I might as well speak on the abilities. You can remotely interact with the environment for free when you get a prompt. It lets you move cover around, toggle stage hazards, and with these drones, knock their shields down so you can deliver damage. They are invulnerable otherwise. Your first cooldown ability is Suicide, and it does exactly what the name implies. Causes foes to pull out a nade and attempt to go to the heavens. Very useful for clearing out clusters of enemies. The second ability is Backblast, and you'll get it after this level. It will knock down 2 enemies at base and cause them to take double damage for a very small duration. I still think the actual value is higher than 2x. It might be closer to 3, but that's impossible to test. Your third and final ability is Persuade, and that causes one enemy to become your ally for a spell, and you can tell immediately that they do a lot more damage than you do. In terms of cooldown hierarchy, Backblast is the easiest to refill, followed by Suicide and then Persuade. My first soft lock was on this level. The animation for pulling off a vent cover never played, and because of that I couldn't fit into the vent. I had to use a console command. If that happens to you on console, I guess you just kick rocks. There will be a man rappelling on each floor, and he's the biggest threat in the room. By the time you figure out he's there, you'll already be dead on hard. Now thankfully, he dies almost instantaneously when you shoot him when he's on the rope. Once he lands though, he becomes as stocky as the rest of them. And there is no checkpoint until you hit the vent, by the way. So this entire sequence can be quite frustrating to troubleshoot on why you're failing. Like these 2 men on this next floor, if you don't know they're there, this is just straight up a restart on hard. It's quite mean-spirited. And even if you do know, there's a good chance you get view kicked so hard you end up having to restart anyways. I got mad lucky here. This is the vent I was talking about. If you get stuck here, you can open the console with Control, Alt, and tilde, and then type in CMD, open bracket, no clip, close bracket, no space, and that will let you progress. Does anyone else think that putting near a full mag into this fella's leg should have killed him? Now I understand they want you to use backfire on shieldmen, but that was just ridiculous. He was like a Tekken player that would refuse to duck even though you went low 100 times in a row. Man has the strongest legs in the world. Coming up is the nightclub everyone remembers this game for. It has so much bloom I had to use a different LUT so you guys can actually see what's going on. The general flow of the room is that a man will drop down from the 2nd floor, then become active and get up to whatever AI things it feels like. This is not too much of an issue because snipers also drop down, and their weapon, when it has ammo, is the 2nd strongest tool in the game. All shots with it wallbang, and it one-taps everything that doesn't have a health bar or a shield you need to hack first. It's phenomenally useful, this gun. The only downside is its low ammo count and the sensitivity being weird when you use the magnified optic. The men will start to become more tanky by this point in the game. If you're running Killing Spree, you'll continue to melt them like the guards in the 2nd level. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm fairly sure the civvies count towards your rampage bonus, or at the very least your score. I might as well speak on that. Nested away at the end of every level is the game's score system. It's on a loading screen, so there is a good chance people have missed it entirely. I know I did until one level just failed to load, and it grades you on several categories. You know, the usual stuff, being accuracy, headshots, damage taken, and time spent in every level before giving out a rank. Good God, is this bloom aggressive when you're low on health. Holy shit. Each category goes up to 100,000 points, and as for the rank, I haven't the foggiest idea what the range is, and it's basically undocumented. The game gave me CEO for every single level, whatever that means, and resist the urge to use the sniper like I'm doing here, instead save it for the 2 shieldmen so you can dispatch them instantly. And it very well could be tied to the difficulty, for all I know. I do think that this system should not have been tucked away as it was. The idea is sound, and it could have led to very interesting score runs, but most players don't even know it exists, and the feedback for interacting with it is really poor. The only indication it even exists when playing is the occasional numerical pop-up from the icon in the center of your HUD. You could easily mistake that as points for your cooldowns. There should have at least been an option to display this in-game on the left like Ninja Gaiden does with Karma. I know it's more visible in the co-op mode, but I never got the opportunity to play that, and the server shut down for them some time ago, like 2 or 3 years back. Now, when you try to go into the mode from the main menu, you just get a thanks for playing message and a notification that the servers are down. Needless to say, it's unplayable. I wonder if this guy is going to realize that there's a window there. Nah, it doesn't seem like he does. Yeah, twice is the magic number. I just never noticed that there's a window there, right? It's a glass pane, but it looks 100% see-through on one side, and there's no effect for shooting it, so I didn't realize it. I just look like a fool. It's very silly, just like missing the man running past on the escalator. Oh lord. Tell you one of the things I don't like though, linking into that real quick. You get like this delayed screen shake whenever an explosion goes off or something in the environment happens, but there's not always a sound effect for it. So you just get these weird instances where your screen is just going haywire and you don't know why, and it's mildly infuriating when it happens. Another thing is, due to the FOV tweak I'm using, progress is not saved between levels when using Chapter Select. My loadout defaults to whatever the devs give me, so I do apologize if my weapons end up differing from what you bring. It's just not something I have any control of. This train station marks the first real boss fight, but until then you get a corridor that's functionally a shooting gallery you can approach any way you want. The various terminal entrances look like they could be cover, but they're not, which sucks because you can clearly see the intent behind the design, it's just not usable. But the co-op mode, it's pretty much unplayable, officially. Unofficially, on the other hand, Cadman made a server emulator for both Syndicate and Mass Effect 3 that people can use. It's beyond cool to see, but for whatever reason, I couldn't get it to work. Followed all the steps, only end up with a different error message in game. Sucks to suck, I guess. I only briefly touched the mode back in the day on the 360, and I didn't really like it all that much, so I never spent any real time with it. So I should correct myself, it wasn't that I didn't get the opportunity, I just didn't have the inclination. From what research I did, it was really involved and was about as long as the main campaign, if not longer, and had guns and enemies not found in the single player. It looked really cool, too. Had a bunch of dynamic objectives to do, and score was front and center. It's clear a ton of time and thought went into the mode, and now it's just lost to time. As for the room, enemies drop down on both sides of this arena, and there's plenty of cover here, so it's not too bad with these restrictions. I do wish, though, that I had the ability to play solo in some capacity in co-op. Might have something to do with my copy of the game, and hopefully it's user error. This game is cool, but not buy a physical copy and a CD reader to go through a bunch of hassle for a mode meant for more than one person cool. I can't really segue into this very easily, so I'm just going to go in and say that I was really harsh on this game in my initial video. The uncommentated version, that is. To give you a peek into the production side of things, I do a rough cut with no commentary and upload that as an unlisted option while I work on and clean up the main project. The turnaround time on writing and doing the commentary is long enough that the multi-day upload is almost negated entirely. I only have like 10 megabyte upload. My provider's kind of ass. Rendering is like 40 minutes, and I have enough space on my array to get away with having 2 copies at once. I can also work on several games simultaneously, but that's easier said than done in all honesty. Anyways, I fell into the trap of grading this game on a playstyle that very clearly isn't what the developers had in mind. On the other hand, I do feel some of those upgrades could have very easily been part of your base kit, and they should have. Here's an example on what I would do. You can sort of tell by how healthy the men become as the game progresses that the devs had Killing Spree in mind. When you get up to running that double damage boost, it feels really good, and the men drop mad quickly. Like, you can enter a room and just John Wick everyone. Without it, you get a bunch of instances of poor feedback and feeling like your arsenal in general is anemic and ineffective outside the Gauss gun and the minigun. Here's the first boss, and the reason why I wanted to do a project. I don't like throwing people under the bus, well that's a lie, I sort of do, but I legit saw some Neo Ninja without his cheats levels of gameplay. On the PC version, on mouse no less, like I am no joke, it is some of the worst aim you've ever seen in your life. If you look around, you can find it pretty easily. Wow, it's just, I'm still in awe of it. What a god gamer. It's almost as bad as Wings saying that Predator 2 is better than Predator 1, god damn it. Oh my god, that's gonna live rent-free in my head for the next like 10 years, fucking hell. How on earth do you open up a 62 IQ compilation with that kind of banger? Good grief. Alright, strats for the boss. Strafe around the center stairwell, like a really bad game of musical chairs. Except with no chairs and a lot more bullets. At half health, he summons ads that are like the sets you fought before you entered the room. If you can have the mooks throw nades at you and disarm them, they will simplify the follow-up phase dramatically. Additionally, when the boss returns to the room, you get a checkpoint, which is very nice. And there's also a drone on each side of the room that you can hack, and that drops a tar if you need ammo. And as you've already seen, the 203 on your rifle does basically nothing against the health bar. On the flip side, the tube is pretty useful for getting rid of his clones. Finally, at the end of the fight, this might trip you up, but once his health bar empties, his clones will come out and appear to glitch out before going back into him and giving him a stagger. The only way to end the fight is to hack him when this happens. You can still retaliate until you damage him again. Honestly, I think you should have just taken a knee and stayed there until you hack him for a better feedback loop. To give an example of this, it would be like a Tekimaru in Neo 2. I'm pretty sure I'm not saying that right. He takes a knee, and it seems like in the moment you need to get in there really quickly, but he stays there indefinitely. And the player just doesn't need to know that this is the case. Small little things like that show an attention to detail, and they go a long way. Where was I with changing the game, though? Oh yeah, same thing with the reduced spread perk. When it comes to various bonuses I think the developers had in mind when designing the core gameplay loop and balancing everything. There are a couple gunfights that I think the devs just assume you have it because oh boy are they annoying to do without. Like here's an SMG, now counter snipe a marksman 100 feet away kind of deal. feels horrendous without it. There's damage fall off too from the looks of it. So it's just a double dipping of AIDS when you combine the two. Weapon switch speed being horrible without a perk, however, is not something I can defend in any capacity. But it does look like that they learned their lesson with that going forward with Wolfenstein. Anyways, what I'm getting at is that in a more ideal world, I would have loved to see Starbreeze triple down on the idea with Killing Spree. And not only have that be for base kit, but go further and have a combat loop almost revolve around it. The idea is that I would introduce lightly armored fodder enemies that you need to seek out in the engagement and slay so you can carry the damage boost over to the more stocky foes. You can even use the guard assets from the early levels or even the EMP men, but weaker in the HP department. This could have turned into a really strong combat loop and worked really well with the existing systems, I think, if the maps gave just a little bit more incentive to not chill out at the entrance to those combat rooms. I'm just describing Doom Eternal, ain't I? I'm turning into mayo, no! Speaking of maps, here's a train level. I do love me some train levels. You have 3 or so real fights before picking up the best gun in the game by a country mile, and then it's just a shooting gallery until the fade to black. And the gunfights aren't particularly difficult either. The hardest thing is pressing F to open the doors. And there she is in the right corner of the room. Oh my god, is she a beauty. I would commit some crimes in my local municipality for this gun. This is the game's minigun. You have infinite ammo, damn near infinite damage, no overheating, no movement speed penalty, and pretty solid accuracy. It's also really loud, so I'm going to turn the footage down a bit. But this gun is utterly disgusting. It's like an early dice gun that's just ridiculously overtuned. You can just cut men in half with it, literally in this game. And they make no effort to take it away from you. You have it until the end of the level every time you pick it up. The feedback on it and just how effective it is, it makes you feel like you're the star of your own action movie, and I fucking love it. There is one very slight downside to it, and that's whenever you get close to cover, your guy moves the weapon around, and when that happens, for some reason the game can kill your fire input and just stop shooting. Feels really bad in the moment when that happens. Just shoot the flying cars, by the way. Don't bother trying to hack them since it takes too long and, well, you have God's personal anti-son-of-a-bitch machine in your hands, you may as well use it to very great effects. With regards to the top of the train, just pop the cover and make your way to the front carriage. You need to fight a set amount of air cars regardless of how quickly you move, so take your sweet time. At the end, you get to engage a gunship for about 3 minutes. The entire back end of this level is dangerously close to being long in the tooth. It makes for a great movie set piece, and on a technical level it's impressive enough, but man, mechanically there is not much going on for this pair of sequences. The gunship should have like 1/3 the health, and you could set it up so that instead of taking the elevator at the back of the train, you hit a ladder in the middle after some guys breached the windows on the way back. And that would have cut down the sheer tedium on display. And I know, it's only a minute and a half in total, but it feels like an eternity when you're on the ground. Or in this case, on the train. Okay, that metaphor doesn't really work. But you get the idea, I'm not impatient, I swear. Here's the full breadth of the gunship fight. You crouch behind one of the few good pieces of cover in this game, hack its turret when it gets in range so it cannot retaliate, and then unload on it. Eventually, it goes up above you and drops down these bombs. You hack them to disarm and continue to unload on it. Do this for 3 minutes. Great job killing the power fantasy. Just give the player a rocket launcher and one-shot it if it's going to be so underdeveloped. But with that, we're done with the first third of the game, and we also unlock the final ability. I do believe that Voyeur Central has to be a vertical slice level Starbreeze used at some point. I have very vague recollections of seeing this area in a preview somewhere, and the lighting in Bloom is almost entirely divorced from the rest of the game once you get inside. Looks quite nice, too. What I want to know is how on earth do you play this in New Order and conclude that they play exactly the same? It's like saying Doom 3 and Quake 3 are identical because you can jump in both titles. Same devs, right? Like, come on now. I can't be the only one who thinks it's a very silly comparison to make. Beyond this room is going to be your first encounter with a liquid armored trooper. Man is looking like a Crisis reject and comes armed with a shotgun, and he will walk you down. You must hack him and deal a certain amount of damage before the window expires to break his armor, or else it all regens and you start from zero. Kite him around the wall and just mag dump. I tried using the shotgun in the footage. Honestly, just avoid the thing. It's the third worst weapon in the game, just above the tar. And I say this because you can at least pretend that it's useful and you can avoid having to use it. Couple reasons why. Compounded with its really mediocre damage is the reload cancel issue I mentioned earlier. Every cancel causes you to continue reloading against your will, and the shotgun is a prime example as to why this is a bad idea. But hey, if you enjoy being stuck in an endless relationship of putting shells in your gun until you swap weapons like it's Wanted Dead, by all means use it. There's a strange bug here with the second liquid armored guy. If you persuade one of the handgun men in the room, he will pretty much insta-kill the trooper. I couldn't find another guy with a handgun for the rest of the game to replicate it, so it might be unique to this room. NPC allies still do more damage elsewhere, and they have the ability to melee and break the armor in a single hit, but it's nowhere near as effective. While I'm here, the whole regenerating armor unless you break it in an X time window is pretty stupid in my book. It's just needlessly frustrating when you lack damage. It's already bad enough you can't engage the man in any capacity head on due to their weapons, and then you add on having your progress reset? No me gusta. I don't like it. Cayman Global opens up with an arena that would work really well in any other game, but here and on hard, it's just a death trap if you try to brawl in the trenches. Look at all this chest-high cover in a 5'11 world when you're 6'2 and tower over it all. It's just brutal. You'll see your third trooper in this cafe as part of a reinforcement wave. I like to persuade one of the men in the rear and use him to steal the man's attention. With a little bit of luck, he might even break the armor for you. Again, just don't try to be aggressive and hug these pillars. I know it's really lame, but you just can't fight men this sturdy while they view kick you into doing a flip. So, I said a couple of videos back that I've been having a good time revisiting games so far, and I haven't came across a stinker quite yet. Well, this statement bit me in the ass pretty bad, but allow me to set the scene. I have a group of mates, right, that randomly decided one day that they wished to revisit Dark Souls 2, and they wanted to co-op through the entire game, and this was to be done on Scholar. And it's about 5 or 6 individuals in total this. Now, when I heard this, my first immediate thought in my head was, okay, well, soul memory is going to be a pain in the ass, but I want to invade them. The game should be dead, so happy days. And I said as much during the discussion, shipping it as the full online experience. They're totally cool with it, mind you. Before I go on, this long hallway is a bit on the annoying side. The chest-high cover continues to be a lie, and since you're fighting AI, you're not going to win this kind of engagement at long range. Not conventionally, anyways. If you chill out on the first side bit, like I'm doing here, it's almost as if the game can't target you at all. Like if I didn't know any better, I would claim this whole fight is scripted so that they just shoot directly down the middle to make it look like they're engaging you. It might be a reasonably good idea to keep a persuade in your pocket for this segment and let the AI do the majority of the legwork for you. And of course they have lasers and you never get access to it, which is a bit of a bummer because they do look cool. But I got permission and all that, but they didn't believe me when I mentioned soul memory is going to be an issue. And it turns out 20 minutes into the first session it was, yeah buddy, but let me continue. My idea going in was to pick a scimitar, go straight to the Forest of Giants with a full stack of cracked red eye orbs, and just go from there. Well, it was horrendous. Turns out the game is not dead at all, and I keep getting randoms in everyone but the group. Also got some of the worst connections I've ever had the displeasure of seeing, and region filtering in that game does not work. It's either you're on this setting or you're not kind of deal, and it doesn't restrict anything at all otherwise. Thanks, From. Defaults to on, by the way, so it's really useless. And it's hidden in such a nested menu that if you change it to off, you won't find any matches anymore. This becomes pretty consistent every session. I beat up a bunch of randoms every night the guys get on, and on average it takes about 40 to 50 invasions before I can get one of the boys. Which makes me wonder, how on earth are you supposed to PvP in that game? Oh yeah, that's right, you're not. Another liquid armor trooper in this room, by the way. You can use the pillars to wallbang him and just not interact with them. It's quite funny, looking back on it, how much of a knee-jerk reaction someone in the studio had to getting bummed in the Berg one time. Designing whole systems to stop it from happening again when the simple answer of, well, just make the starting areas uninvadable is just staring you right in the face. Or better yet, the existing mechanic in one with humanity. It was handled incredibly elegantly then, and we just ignore it going forward. This is your first run-in with a minigun trooper. Never fight this man head-on. Always put some cover between you and him and try to wallbang if you can. There's no universe you can contest that level of firepower, and he never stops shooting. One good thing though is that on his final health bar, you just need to hack him and he will explode on his own. Where was I though? Oh yeah, I was gonna go into how you forget much of the core problems with that game when you go back to it. I got history with 2. I played it on launch, made a bunch of PvP videos, even had a brief brush with fame when I shield bashed Yuka's Legion on stream. I wish that fight still existed on the internet, but alas, I didn't have the foresight to save it then. So it's been a little over a decade since I last touched it. Only played Scholar briefly, and I didn't like it at all. Ooh, this section has a little bit of a sequence going on with it. I don't know about you, but I had a bit of a hard time scanning for targets here. After you deal with the stairmen is one guy on the balcony, one guy in the doorway on the left once you go down one flight of stairs, one guy behind the desk, and then a final man in the doorway again. It took me way too long to figure out how I was dying here, so hopefully that helps you. After that set, go forward and hug this right wall here. You'll get a great instance of the minigun's might, breaking the liquid armor, something the rocket launchers can't even do in this game. God, I love this minigun. It does things to me. But continuing on, most of my issues with Dark Souls 2 is that I played Dark Souls 1 semi-recently. Not like a playthrough of the game or anything like that, but a serious attempt to learn the PvP through Rudy's mod, alongside all the knowledge and tech that's accumulated over the years. Check out that mod, by the way. It does a bunch of stuff, but the big one is this new consumable that creates a visual explosion when you die, but keeps you alive, so you can just fight people for as long as you want and avoid the shit parts of the game. Even adds new arenas to fight in. It's super cool. Anyways, I went back to 1 with a super rudimentary understanding of that game. During the olden years of Prepare to Die, I was a strength guy. I ran around with a bastard sword or a Great Lord Greatsword, and I just refused to ever put points into decks. I didn't even know how to counter backstab. The only thing I did know was how to dead angle, and that was thanks to Martyr's Brigade. Then, on my return, I went on to learn that there's a whole RPS involved with backstabs, and it only feels cheap because the online is ass and it visually obfuscates what's really happening. Went on to learn about toggling, ravioli rolling, omni-stepping, backstab buffering behind parries, ghost hitting, ring swapping, the whole 9 yards. I didn't know shit. And it turns out the game has a metric ton of mechanical depth going on. It's like a fighting game for bums, and I just didn't have the mind at the time to fully appreciate what the game brought to the table. The irony is, when I first went to 2, I echoed what people would end up saying about going from Street Fighter 4 to 5, being a return to neutral and spacing, fundamentals. Now I go back to 2 and I just miss all the complexity. It's all gone. Literally was the first thing I noticed when I invaded someone. The other thing that I notice is invading in force before you get to the Cardinal Tower is that the spawn points for invaders is giga ass. One of them is on a balcony above the room with a tree, and they put a hollow smack dab in front of the ladder, so you can't get down at all without taking a good chunk of damage. Look at this man trying to hide from me. Little does he know, I am Sun Luk Dong. I struck out 12 Taiwanese All-Stars in the Little Leagues. God, Kangaroo Jack is such a stupid fucking movie. Anyways, I figured, hey, starting area. One dude at From must have got bummed at the Berg one time, and he's still ass mad about it when making 2. Maybe the later spots would be better. Spoilers, they're not better. All are pretty much universally dog shit, and you spend too much damn time looking for the host in every zone. It's really annoying. Much like this level. The entirety of behind the scenes is just a collection of awkward gunfights that you have to suffer through. Regardless, by the end of the first session, I was already out of their soul memory bracket by killing dudes for 150 souls a pop. The guys left each other's brackets in half an hour. Quick aside, the co-op ring made an entire SM bracket early game is incredibly apropos for From. And the act of actually playing the game as intended made me want to dive out a window, mostly due to the navigation. So I just said screw it at some point, got a cheat engine table, and started making builds just for my own sanity's sake. And for your sanity's sake, if you're playing this game, pull out your Kusanagi when you hit this room and shoot the man through the wall. You can't shoot him through the glass, but you can through the metal sheet, which is strange. When you do that, that stops all these drones from spawning in infinitely. And it may also soft lock you like it did me, but I can't vouch for the consistency on that, because I've done this section normally and it still locks me out. But while I'm on the topic of the cheat engines, I found out that the subreddit gets really ass mad if you make builds like that. Like, people in the community haven't been doing that since the hills. One post had droves of people mauling over one guy who was doing Mirror Knight invasions with the swap glitch, so he had like 60-something spell heals and 600-something arrows. And it was the arrows that got people mad about it. And the OP didn't even have a bow to use them. Like, even if he did, you're not going to be fighting that guy long enough for something like that to ever matter. But I'm getting off track. Oh look, the one gun fight in this level that isn't awkward. It's also like 10 seconds long. Regardless, the builds I'm doing with the cheat engine aren't even all that crazy. The gear makes sense for what in theory could be possible if I did another Soul Level 1 run, and the Ring of the Embedded keeps me in the bracket I want. That usually lasts exactly 1 session anyways, go figure. But dude, speaking of that subreddit, they've somehow convinced themselves that Elden Ring is the direct sequel to Dark Souls 2. But I'm still trying to wrap my head around that one and the mental gymnastics that leap in logic requires. I bet it's literally because, well, it has power stancing, bro. Bah. Anyways, the group Dark Souls 2 sessions is on hold these days. Half of them are waiting for a Seamless mod to come out, and one of the guys, Flame, had his first kid, and no one wants to progress past him until he gets back on. I still need to wish him congratulations on that. God damn it, I'm behind on some shit. Here's another really awkward gunfight to get into. You have to kill these 2 jammers before you're allowed to use your abilities and hack this guy's armor, so you're just kind of sitting behind cover and trying to wallbang the entire time. It feels to me that Starbreeze really underutilized these jammer troopers. They are almost always paired with a liquid armored guy and never in regular crowds. You could have turned them into a buff totem you need to hunt down before having full access to your kit, or just anything really, instead of only being regulated to being an additional step before you take another man's armor down. There are plenty of fights that would have been more interesting for the player to tackle if they were forced to move around the arenas just a little bit more, and the jammers would have been an excellent vector to do so. Right shame that they never got realized better. There's this other game I've been revisiting of late, and it's only a couple of years old, so not normally what I would classify as revisiting, but it's called Shatterline. It was this free-to-play, hero-esque shooter that had a co-op roguelite mode and a PvP mode I so thoroughly disliked that I just ignored it entirely. The roguelike had 3 players run around on this huge map, doing random battles and picking up perks and the like in a set amount of time before having to converge into the center of the map and fight a boss. Gosh, that almost sounds like Night Rain now that I've written all that out. That game was pretty cool. Had really good feeling movement, and the mouse input was damn good. Even made landing headshots not the easiest thing in the world, with mobs that like to shift around a lot, so it was good for aim training. This trooper fight is a bit awkward. The barrel off to the side is not as useful as you want it to be, so maybe save a nade or two for this section, otherwise you just have to use your pistol and burst them down, and it doesn't feel great. I played that game for a couple of months, did the first battle pass, and then sat out the second one. Speaking of sitting things out, and I swear this segue wasn't planned at all, here is the second agent boss fight that you don't get to confront, really. This is less of a boss and more of a buggy puzzle that you have to solve. The gimmick is that you need to hack his missiles and redirect them back to him, but not at him. Instead, the goal is to damage all the platforms enough so that he jumps to the middle one off to the left of you with a missile following him. Otherwise, he'll just stand there and shoot you with his gun before hopping back and shooting more missiles at you. And if he decides to do that, it's a hit scan, and if you're not already in cover, you're dead. It's buggy in the sense that there's zero consistency to be had here. The missiles returning to its platform and exploding correctly is entirely up to chance on its own, and you're reliant on getting a hack as he moves to a particular position, otherwise the fight just drags on. He can also throw jamming nades at you, the only time a game utilizes this as a mechanic, but that's based on your distance to him, and that's another variable you can't really control, as he's significantly faster than you. So you just end up sitting in the middle, really, and playing reactively to him until he decides he's ready to fuck off and let you progress. It's quite lame. It could have been a decent idea for a pace breaker, but I prefer to shoot men in my games about shooting legions of bad men with targets on their foreheads. If the player had more abilities, it could have had additional complexity in this encounter, instead of just holding E occasionally and hugging a wall when this bloke remembers that he has a gun, and you're just as bad as he is. Not as bald though, but there's no curing that. Maybe a wig, a really fancy wig could do it. Dude, every time this game takes control away from you, your dude is just getting his ass beat. He can break steel handcuffs like it's nothing and barge through walls as if they're made of tissue paper, yet some dude with his fists comes in swinging and he freezes like a deer in headlights. I don't like that all that much. Ooh, tricky sequence with a shit checkpoint. Your HUD doesn't work here, but you can still use one ability, backshots. The biggest threat in the room here is not the balcony then, but rather the fellas in the center. Hug this container in the rear here and watch out for mollies. They kill you instantly for some reason at base health. The SMG has a larger mag than the TAR, and it's going to be your first introduction to it here, and that's about all that's good going for it. The alt fire lets you put a suppressor on it. It lowers your damage. That's it. It's not like there's stealth in this game, so I don't really see the point of it. It might just be a GoldenEye callback, honestly. Do try not to die in this room. As I said, the checkpoint blows. You get to mash F to get up every single time and then hold an animation. It's enough to drive any man mad. But if I'm remembering right, I think I stopped playing Shadowline because it was to do with how they changed double XP. You used to be able to stockpile it, and then it was changed to be automatically used when you pick it up. And they were very small increments of like 2 or 3 hours at a time. So the game got put into this really weird spot where you weren't encouraged to play all that much. Most of the progression was behind weekly challenges, but you got Stonewall if you didn't get your XP boost, so tough shit, I guess. I got no idea if they ever changed that bit. Eventually though, about a year or so back, the game was pulled from Steam. The devs ended up migrating over to Epic Games Store for the official release, and none of the progress from the EA version was to be carried over. All you would get was this shitty charm and a thank you for playing. I don't believe it was because they got a deal or anything to move over to the service. Get this, the main reason was so they can add bloody NFTs to the game, so on Steam it just got deleted. I have zero interest in that space too, so I have no idea if they were successful or not. Either way, it was a bit of a bummer that game up and disappeared, and I wasn't going to be spending 20 bucks on it on Epic just to start from nothing again. So the game just slipped by me. I still thought of that game from time to time, and I even use its in-game sensitivity for mousesense.com whenever I get my sense for other shooters. It's just easier for me to remember the number 59 instead of Quake's 1.033884, for example. Yeah, I have a 25cm 360. Fight me. Anyways, fast forward to like last month or so, and the game came back to Steam for 10 bucks. To my understanding, the devs shut down the multiplayer component of the game. Grab one of the sniper rifles on the floor here, it makes the next couple sequences a lot easier. I saw that for whatever reason it was in my Steam library already, and I figured it might be cool to see where it ended up. Unfortunately, now it's just a loose collection of multiplayer campaign missions and some comic book-esque cutscenes between them that are not even voiced. Additionally, the difficulty of those missions has been pared down. It's really hard to fail on them now, where before they could be quite challenging in places. You can't even pause the game, and there's no checkpoints on death, even though the game says checkpoint reached occasionally. Is there a chance anyone knows why my screen decided to shake randomly there? There's like nothing going on in the stage and it just goes haywire. But I only ever got to play the first 2 or 3 or so missions in that format, so the rest are somewhat new to me. They're not terribly long, about 10 minutes at worst and 120 seconds for the shorter ones. Can't tell you if they're all from the mode or if some of them were made with this new single-player direction in mind. I'm guessing it's the former though. It's just strange coming back to that game and navigating around this broken husk of an experience. 80% of the guns ended up getting removed and half of the heroes are unusable, even though some of them are on the loading screens between levels. When you hit this elevator, stay in the back of it. There's these explosive barrels at the front that insta-kill you if you're nearby. It's fucking cheap. It's cool in a game's preservation sense that something from that game survived and continues to be playable, but it feels so half-assed what we got as consumers. I would not recommend that game at all unless you already own it and feel like booting it up. But if you're the kind of guy that cares about Steam achievements, you can get that game and every single one of them is like 0.001% completion. So if you want to pad out your profile a little bit, might be an opportunity there. On the topic of free games, the remaster for System Shock 2 came out semi-recently, depending upon when this video finally goes live. Since I pre-ordered the Shock 1 remake a long time ago, I got a nice surprise with the remaster for 2 showing up in my library unannounced. Can't say it's my first time playing it. I boot up occasionally over the years and I do a quick run. If you're thinking about picking that game up, you could get a very similar experience by downloading a mod pack. $30 is a bit of an ask. There's a couple of balance changes that try to make some perks a bit more appealing instead of a waste of space, but again, the community patch is 95% of the way there. Animations for reloading and hands on more guns is nice, I guess, but it could have been a bit better. But if you don't like System Shock 2, the remaster isn't going to change any minds. The gunfight at the end of this level is so beige. I could say the same for all the levels that take place in this Undercity tile set. I just don't like the aesthetics of it, honestly. And the SMG isn't particularly fun to use, so it all just blends together for me. And you just kind of approach every single gunfight the exact same way, -1 in this follow-up level. Like, it's no joke to say that disarming the mines in this area is the highlight of the level. Again, neat idea on paper, restricting the player's abilities for 3 or so areas, but I don't think it's conducive to a good time when playing the game. Starbreeze could have gone in and given the player a different set of abilities for this section of the game, like a Molotov on cooldown or C4 you could throw out. Just some form of gadget to supplement booty shot. But alas, this is what we ended up with, so this portion of the game is just a bit of a drag in release. And I might add that fighting invisible men that are actually invisible isn't my idea of fun. Make them like Predator. You can tell they're there just by looking closely enough. Otherwise, it's just frustrating. Oh yeah, before I forget, don't do what I'm doing here. Save some of your sniper ammo for a later bit in this level. It's very important that you do, otherwise it's an incredibly annoying section. At any rate, there's been quite a few games that have come out around this time of year. We had Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, and Shinobi next month. There's even the Battlefield 6 beta rapidly coming up. I hope BF6 is the game though. Like, from the looks of it, they're making every single right decision so far. Oh man, I need a good Battlefield in my life again. But I couldn't get on with Wu Chang. That game ran really poorly for me, and I wasn't fond of the trash mobs poise tanking everything you do, and the weapons being slow and horrible with animations you don't want. Admittedly, I wasn't all that excited for that game. I just thought it could be a fun little romp that I tried out on a whim, and because of that I wasn't too bothered. I'll tell you what does bother me though, this entire goddamn section. This flamethrower section is the worst rooms in the game, full stop. It's supposed to be this power fantasy moment, and the gun is somewhat strong, but the map is your enemy as soon as you leave the fenced-off area. I'd think they'd give you a bunch of close-quarter gunfights to get into and burn some men, but instead you're immediately met with enemies outside your effective range just nailing you. It feels really bad. And the next room is one of the most open rooms in the game, with a whole bunch of chest-high cover that's just there to mock you. Like, you can't use it. You try to hide behind it, you get fucked instantly. They put a rocket launcher man in here too, the only one in the entirety of the single player, that just fucks you again. And he has infinite ammo and just spams that shit once every 3 seconds. He has a faster rate of fire than the player does when you have access to it, which is just dumb. It's a really frustrating section. And if you don't have sniper ammo like I do in the footage, it's really annoying and it will take you a while to get through. I'm still kind of annoyed by it looking back on it. With the 2 men on the gas tank, don't try to shoot them, hack the side panel, and that will blow it up for you. And here's the room in question. Fuck this room. Fuck everything about it. Fuck the guy who made it. I want his head on my mantle and his body shot into the sun. With no sniper ammo, you're left doing this with the SMG every attempt. And if you're unlucky, it'll take multiple magazines to do and you'll probably die. The 3 dudes in the center of the room can screw you bad if you use backskate and it doesn't knock down the rocket launcher man. Then, you need to rapidly retreat back to the start of the room since again, cover is useless, and you'll most likely die on that too. All the while, the flamethrower the game just gave you becomes an active detriment to your ability to succeed, and the rocket launcher has a long-winded pickup animation that makes you want to die. God, I hate this room. But after you do all that and retreat to the start of the room, you're pretty much done with it. Just don't engage with the arena the way the devs wanted you to, and it's easy life from here. Just chill out back here and shoot the invisible men as you see them. Pun intended. Maybe if the cover actually was worth a damn and you could fight the engine without getting banged up by view kick, you could go in here. But alas. We can't always have nice things, now can we? On that note, I couldn't get on with Ragebound as well, and that's a game I'm legitimately saddened that I could not mesh with. It wasn't a 5 minutes in, oh, it's not for me deal either. I legitimately put time in and tried to enjoy the game. I just couldn't do it. You look online for general reception and people are claiming it's a perfect game, best platformer in 15 years and so on. And I'm wondering if these people have the same game I do. It didn't feel good to play at all. I have this 3-strike system I use for games that I'm unsure of when still within the 2-hour refund window. Say your game has 3 things wrong with core mechanics that I heavily disagree with, and I'm not already enamored with the overall experience, I want my money back. I've gotten burned by enough, well, maybe it gets better games that I won't even entertain that thought anymore. But my first strike was the input buffer. It stores input something fierce. You can't do a roll attack and have just that attack come out. You get an additional swing that you don't want and you only press the button once. You can't press Y, wait a second, then B without getting Y plus B and a nimpo you don't want comes out. Fat ass strike 1, Mena RD size. Another thing was attacks being locked to the cardinals. As not Ryu, you end up getting clipped from the areas you have no coverage. I'm a big Symphony of the Night guy. One of the things that I check out of the gate is if you can attack on a diagonal. It does a lot for game feel for me. Not being able to do so is annoying, but not a full markdown. Additionally, I don't think Hypercharge really works in that game, or at the very least, its implementation of it. It's a sound idea on paper. Kill a smaller marked enemy to get a charge so you can insta-kill a larger foe. But the developers, Game Kitchen, usually throw a roadblock enemy at you that you need a charge for, but have the guy that comes in to give it to you be off screen. The expectation is that you stay there in the general vicinity and chill in the area long enough for him to show up. It acts like a hard roadblock unless you just go around the enemy in question, which you usually can do, but it's not encouraged when you're rank running. I think it kind of ruins the flow of the stage when you interact with the mechanic. And admittedly, it's not the worst thing in the world since getting clears don't require you to use it in those scenarios, but it's still something you need to do when rank running. So second markdown. Speaking of markdowns, this entire boss fight is a demerit to this game. You're just shooting the invisible man for 5 minutes straight when you don't have any idea where he is and he doesn't have a set pattern. Hit these mines over and over again and pray to God that he's in the general vicinity, or follow his shadow, which is like this tiny little pixel on the ground. Lovely. And then in the latter half, they force the revolver on you and your damage output just takes a fucking dump. And this is after the boss beats your ass in a cutscene again. Dude, Kilo, you need to take like a self-defense course, learn martial arts or something. This is ridiculous, it just keeps happening to the man. Defend yourself, my dude. He's even calling your morality into question. Meanwhile, I'm over here wondering when I can shoot more men. I am the killer, I am the problem. I wish I had some tips to give for this boss, but I really don't. You're just kind of like, you're just trying to have to feel out where he may be at any given point or time, and his movement patterns don't make too much sense. The flip side, though, is that he's not particularly threatening, and if he kills you, it would be really surprising if he's capable of doing so. He's worthless, you're worthless, nothing's really happening. And there's not even like any music to cap off the encounter either. The whole thing's awkward. I don't know what the intent is here. I'm like, are we supposed to feel sympathetic for this fella? Like, he's just some rando in the slums, to my understanding. But then again, after this, the lady that we've been chasing after who betrays the company ends up betraying us and has a backdoor in our system, but we had to confirm 4 times that she's a traitor, and are supposed to be shocked that she crosses us. Then we end up helping her double cross us again and lies to our face. And we're supposed to be cool with it? Man, the plot for this game makes no fucking sense. Can I get Vadi to make a video that's just a loose collection of Reddit and 4chan posts to explain what the fuck is going on here? Okay, where was I? I was talking about Ragebound, right? I think I was on the second markdown. I'm just gonna continue from the second strike. Anyways, on top of that second strike, it ties back into the input buffer being strange with all the extra attacks. You'll get sequences where you get a charge through melee and you'll instantly lose it because you can't attack just the one time, and it leads to an over-incentivization of using only ranged attacks with hypercharge. But that comes with its own problems considering that all those ranged attacks are tied to a meter you may or may not have at any given moment. That's technically 3 strikes already, but I like how that game looks, so I'll give it an extra chance. The platforming felt like it was going against its own design as well. People are telling me it's super fluid. The amount of ceiling clings you have to do with no options for quickly gaining past through player skill and knowledge is out of this world. There's elevator rides you have to hold when, again, you have a whole repertoire of ninja abilities you could be utilizing. I don't know how it's fluid. Clearing stages quickly involves jump attacking on top of projectiles and enemies and the like, and that's cool and feels good. But every time progression doesn't involve that, it gets tedious and frequently involves waiting around. Doing so over death pits with frequent bad checkpoints exasperates that problem. Half point markdown. I don't like it, but I'll tolerate it. Then the pacing was ass. The opening Kenji levels were fine. Then you hit the first sections where you play as the lady ninja, and that felt horrendous. There's a boss fight you have to deal with at the end of her first level, and that has you shooting kunai straight up to deal damage unless you manually hypercharge to knock the boss down. But there is a fat fucking delay on it where you only get one kunai, then it pauses, and then you get a stream of projectiles. Optimal damage involves guillotine jumping to get the 3 kunai attack that goes diagonal, but it's a pain in the ass to line up and the movement is not precise enough for shit like that. That fight felt like shit and it put a sour taste in my mouth. I normally throw games out for far less than that if it's that early on, but I continued onwards anyways. These liquid armor troopers with the lasers are sheep in wolf's clothing. They look really threatening, but the laser is... I think the laser is one of the worst guns in the game. Like, it's down there with like the revolver and the tar. It looks fancy, but the TTK is abhorrent and it overheats after a short amount of time too. You can't kill anything before it overheats either, so it's so bad, even when it's in the hands of the engine, it's still not effective. You can't feather it either. There's an alt fire that turns into a railgun, but that takes 2 shots to kill basic mobs. It's just not a good weapon, especially considering you only can carry 2 at a time. Ooh, this lobby sequence is a little bit of fun. If you carry grenades into the room, you can just decimate as they come out of the doors. If you're too quick, your AI companion will just shoot the wall over and over again. Wastes quite a bit of time too, I'll cut it out. After that boss fight with the lady, the next mission is a bike section that is legit god fucking awful. It's too goddamn long for a stupid gimmick, and trying to get attacks to go backwards to slow the train down behind you, it was like trying to manipulate a 2.5mm piece of plastic into a slot without any tweezers while tripping balls and drunk in an unlit room. Honestly, the entirety of that level was an instant markdown. I don't think it has any business being in the game. So that's not a good look overall, being so early in the campaign. So what is that, 4.5 points down in a first to 3? I'm bad at basic math, and addition boggles my brain pan. One more chance. I didn't like the bosses. I think they're simple in a bad way. I think your basic movement being so imprecise in a game with a ludicrous amount of contact damage feels bad in the moment. I think the lack of a restart checkpoint option is a massive demerit, and the short run back to the boss room that also forces you to hold their intro animation is entirely needless. I'm basically bending over backwards at this point trying to enjoy the game. Gave it more than its fair share of ignoring combinations of shit I normally don't put up with, and it's only been 115 minutes. I got to the Twin Snake head boss, died once, and flushed it. Oh look, I get another opportunity to segue into a boss being shit. It's pretty consistent with this game. This boss fight should have been flushed in the design room. All the complexity for this fight revolves around these 4 pillars that can be brought down, and your job is to run between them as he's doing so and bring them back up as needed. And yeah, that's it. It's slow, it's monotonous, it's just really shit. And the checkpoint is abysmal because they put you dead center in the middle of the room in the place you do not want to be. And he has a Gauss gun, so he can occasionally hit you behind cover. When you pull out your Gauss gun and lock onto him, the lock-on instantly breaks, and I do not agree with that. Your game plan for this fight is to sit around a corner and noob tube him repeatedly. When you run out of the 30 mic, you hit the locker on the wall to get a resupply, then continue doing it. There is no incentive nor opportunity to get into a gunfight with this man straight up and win. If you do, you're just asking to get view kicked to Saturn, and you will lose. The plus side is he only has 1 health bar, and at every threshold he cannot regen any further than that, so you're not too pressed for time. Being forced to do this casually puts a really bad taste in my mouth. It screams padding, and they just didn't have enough time to finish the game, so they had to throw this guy in here to get like a little bit more playtime out of the player. And yeah, that's right, you have to do this casually. Even with upgrades, you're still kind of forced into this playstyle. It's whack. Could have been a lot better, could have been more interesting, and I don't even think this character has any presence in the story at all. This is like your first time encountering him, which is pretty weird. It sucks though, because I know Ragebound can be cool, and the way that they handled ranked looked really interesting and seemed like something I would enjoy doing. Hard mode remixing stages is mad cool to see as well, but I just didn't have fun playing. It wasn't even because I found it too hard, it just wasn't enjoyable. I think the first half of The Messenger is a better Ninja Gaiden game, and I don't even like the Metroidvania part of that game in the slightest. Guess I'm just not geriatric enough to enjoy that game. Ooh, while we're in this room, this hack is super abusable. It electrifies both sides of the arena, and if you don't use it, this gunfight can be quite challenging. Every 20 seconds or so you can use it, and it kills everyone on the platform. It's really cool. Funnily enough, while I'm here, this is one of the few rooms that I can remember from this game when I played it back on the 360. I just have this memory of this room in the back of my head for some reason. Maybe it's because it was a pain in the ass? I think perhaps it's because it's the orange color palette that broke up the blue monotony of the rest of the game. Who knows? It's only been 13 years. What I do know, though, is I really should have played the demo when it was available instead of just sitting on ass about it. I might have even came to this conclusion sooner. To my understanding, Blasphemous 1 and 2 are kind of the same in that regard. Cool looking games that are almost there, but not quite, with some questionable decisions. But I don't have enough of a hate boner to spite dive into those games to find flaws. I just know they're not for me. Here's another awkward room. Sort of. Honestly, the entirety of this video has been hard to produce because of fights like this, and why I'm talking about Bullock so much. The game isn't exactly all that difficult. Only when you're doing some silly restrictions can it be challenging, and even then, there's only a handful of points of friction, and they boil down to, oi, stand here and you'll be fine, and recommendations on what guns to avoid. Maybe I'm just not cut out to do walkthroughs for shooters. I still wanted to showcase this game since it's cool and it does really interesting things, and it's a great foundation for a sequel that's bigger and better that never came, but it's really hard talking over it when I get so few opportunities to speak about the game and give insights on how to beat it. It's kind of like Whiplash though, going from a Mega Boost where I have no time to talk about anything, to this where I have too much time to talk about everything. And I say all this when the level coming up has the most to speak of, ironically enough. But speaking of demos, the Shinobi demo, on the other hand, I tried out and I was instantly captivated by it. Being able to dash freely in the air, juggle and dive kick, jump cancel off enemies had me enamored by minute 5. Enemies not dying to a single slash and being juggleable into a pseudo-Tate system had me rock hard. The platforming being a bit more particular and restarting you back to the start of the room on top of taking damage doesn't even bother me all that much. Actually hitting my refresh rate and not being locked to 60 was another huge boon, although I've heard Ragebound hits your display cap when you have VSync on, I just didn't know at the time. Right, here's a room that's actually difficult, and how difficult it's going to be for you directly correlates to how long you can go before you utilize the pair of ceiling turrets. If you use them early on, you're gonna have a bad time. Nail the repelling men first. The two guys to the side of you are set dressing that don't target you and they die in a single hit. Try your best to get through the first wave of guys without using a turret, and keep an eye on the stairway to your left as that's the most frequent spot the AI will push here. You want to become a stationary emplacement up until a dropship swoops in on the left side and dispatches a pair of jammers and a liquid armor trooper armed with a shotgun. It's a big room, so he's not exactly a threat, but you will be on a timer to kill him before the next set of enemies comes in with the exact same composition. I like to burn my nades on the first group, then pop one turret for the other and just not deal with it. Not the most ideal way to go about it, honestly. In retrospect, just suffering both sets is the better play. Either way, once both dropships leave, the next squad of foes comes in from the pair of elevators that are to the left and right of the wall you're looking at as you come into the room. And your first checkpoint is given here. You'll want to grab a tar from the wall to resupply and any nades that may be laying around, and push into either the left or right elevator. I personally prefer the left. When you're up there, it prevents the game from spawning any enemies at that location and is defensible with semi-usable cover. Just chill out there until the 3 elevators on the right side wall activate. It's at this point in the game that the tar feels the worst. You need almost a full mag at times to put these men down, and it's not exactly accurate enough to go for headshots reliably. As I said earlier in the video, the 203 takes at least 2 shots per man now, and it's not even that great for softening up targets due to how long and jank the reload and mode switch is. What you want to do instead of what I'm doing here is be liberal with your use of the Gauss gun you have access to. I'm being really conservative with it here, thinking I was going to be able to carry it into the final boss, but at the time I didn't know that progress wasn't being saved in mission select. The devs were just really good with making sure your starting weapons were probably what you wanted to bring. Instead, the boss room gave me a tar and a shotgun, and I was very sad when I found out. And I say be liberal with it here, I don't mean like just expend all your ammo, save a good amount for the hallway room coming up after this area. Otherwise, that fight is really awkward, even more so when you don't have upgrades. And don't do what I'm doing here. Do as I say, not as I do. I have no idea what I was thinking in the footage. Maybe I was just trying to like do things a little bit differently and spice it up, but I don't know. This is just like an exercise in futility, this. But after this wave, you'll get the elevators on the side. Dude, I said there was 3 elevators. There's actually 2. What's that right area then? It looks like there should be one there, but it's just not. How strange. First wave is regular men and a laser trooper. I toss a nade or 2 at this cluster from up on the starting catwalk. You have a checkpoint right behind you, so it's not the worst play of this. And chances are there's like 1 or 2 nades that got chucked over here that you ended up defusing and walked past. It's funny, the tar looks really strong here when you compare it directly to the laser guy doing no damage to you. It's on hard as well, so you're taking bonus damage and it still feels like you could just face tank it at base health and walk it off. I guess in the footage I popped the second turret on the second wave. Not sure why I did that if I'm being honest. It's just making the following group where it's both elevator doors opening harder than it needs to be. The wave is only a trooper, some regular mooks, and a drone. More than doable. Huh. While we're waiting, I might as well speak on this other game I tried out recently, and it's called Blueprints. It's a puzzle game with a roguelite element that takes place in an ever-shifting house. I saw a YouTuber I have a good amount of respect for recommending it, saying it was really cool and based on a book called House of Leaves. Also never heard of it. He described the book as being 3 stories stacked together like a Matryoshka doll, and being a pain in the ass to read. But it does some unique things with the medium, like having margins on the page shrink as a character goes into an ever-constricting crawl space. I'm kind of a sucker for books like that. Not the pain in the ass bit, but doing something different like that. Ah, now I see why I activated the turret early, it's because I used the Gauss rifle here. Yeah, don't do this, just save it for the hallway bit. Anyways, let me speak on the game first. I think it's a title that's very much at odds with itself mechanically. The puzzles, when they're in isolation, are done well enough. However, the roguelike aspect of the game ensures that your access to said puzzles is not guaranteed, and they are tied to overall progression. I did a couple of runs, completed all the puzzles that I had access to, but for the life of me could not get to the end of a first clear. The reason being is that when you play, you open doors and get to place the next room from a set of 3 picks, with each room's layout influencing where you can physically go on a grid-shaped map. I'm not a very lucky individual, it seems, since in the 4 hours I played, I kept bricking my house over and over. I just end up with dead ends and no way to progress. This elevator's a fake out, by the way. The dude that comes out is already dead, it's just the 2 drones. Don't throw a nade. If I wasn't a lazy bastard, I'd just go in and re-record this entire level. But the only thing I could do in Blueprints was restart and try again repeatedly. I spoke to one friend who likes that game, and he also said that the default randomization is ass, and the only way to beat that game is by installing a mod that gave him infinite rerolls for rooms. Thankfully, I played it through Steam's family sharing, and I lost no money. Only time trying that game out. Bit disappointed, sure. Music was quite lovely in the time I played, though. The book, on the other hand, I really enjoyed. The premise is indeed 3 stacked stories. The first story is of a family that moves into a house with a strange room that's larger on the inside than the rest of the house and constantly shifting, and makes a film on their experiences with this room. Then it's a documentary and a collection of scientific papers on the fictional film. Then finally, a blind man who writes a critique on the documentary, and his editor, who's a young drunkard that trips balls and goes insane trying to edit the man's analysis. Also documents his descent into madness. And you know what? The YouTuber was right. It is a pain in the ass to read. The drunk man's ramblings are really hard to digest. The documentary part of the book I can see being off-putting and almost satirical in nature with how overly dense and verbose it can get, going on nonsensical tangents that have no point to them at times. The blind man's critique of the documentary comes off as a wannabe scholar trying to sound smarter than he is. But the main story, being the Navison record, the film the family made about the house, is legitimately interesting. I enjoyed the dynamic the family had and the response to the shifting room that should not exist. The exploration into the room and the shifting maze inside was legitimately gripping and a page-turner for me. I'm just guessing here, but I think the 2 side stories going off track as they do is meant to represent the maze that's inside the house, maybe? The drunk young man's ramblings I could go without, though. But the verbose nature of the documentary legitimately nailed that scholar-esque writing style you occasionally see. You know, where people try to assign incredibly deep meanings to the mundane and benign. At points I was questioning if the book was even really a work of fiction with how well those bits were written, even citing sources that I can't be asked to confirm if they're real or not. I may or may not be guilty of skimming through the drunk man's ramblings, though. The rest of the book I quite like, and the physical stuff like the shrinking margins or having to flip the book around weren't as obnoxious as I thought they were going to be, being quite short and tasteful. Reading it was cool, and made me realize that the Doom Wad My House that I played a few years back is a massive love letter to that book. I never knew it at the time. Suddenly that side room that led into that huge maze and an endless spiral staircase makes so much sense as to why it was included. Maybe revisit that at some point. Back to Syndicate real quick though. This is the dreaded hallway. If you're doing no upgrades and don't use the Gauss gun, this is the worst room in the game. Being 6'1" in a 5'9" world means there's zero cover to be had here. Use the Gauss. Seriously, don't save it, spend it here. If you're a stubborn bastard and insist on using the tar, you're looking at a ton of running in and out of the hall as your only source of usable cover. Better hope you brought enough ammo for the Kusanagi to wallbang the majority of the men. Oh, and that drone turret you can hack? It's not terribly helpful here. Since it only follows you around by staying directly on top of your head, you can't sit in safety while it does the majority of the work. It's only minor supplemental damage at best. What I'm getting at is that this is just a bad time all around. Sometimes when you do a challenge run, you just run into these types of situations where everything breaks down and you're just stuck in the shit. Anyway, some Polygon news. I ended up getting signed with Prism. I cleared 2 out of the 3 challenges and they put me officially on the roster. Yay! Bad news though is that the game is even more dead than before. The one-man dev team seems to have abandoned the game outright. He has no communication with anyone regarding the game. Someone spotted that he updated a dev tool on some website, I forget which, a couple of months or so back, so he's still alive, he's just refusing to get in touch with anyone or provide sides of life. Competitively, the PCL just started a new season last week. My team went against Dawn, who's similar in skill to us, then followed up against Surge, the best team for the game, damn near undefeated. I had the pleasure to play in both games, back-to-back Sandstorm matches with the same spawns to boot. Dawn we laid out, but Surge continues to beat our ass. Looking at the match footage, I noticed that they were moving around in a very particular way, and I managed to advocate that we adopt some of their strategies they were utilizing. I don't feel like we were losing the gunfights or just outskilled, rather our overall strategy is what needs work. That team might be beatable on that map. Or I'm just talking out of my ass here and I'm huffing more copium than a Bloodborne fan waiting for a remake. Casually though, that game has a rampant cheater issue now. Before, you could play every day for a week and see maybe one guy cheating with some obvious shit. Now there's a cheater ruining a lobby every night it seems, and there's even less rooms to pick than before. It's like almost as bad as Battlefront 2 when you go into Rush. Speaking of which, me and Nick picked up that game recently. I didn't realize I owned it for some time now. That game is super sick, I wish I got into it sooner. I have no idea why. I almost want to say it's because of the microtransaction issue, but that didn't even make it into the launch game. Me and him have been hitting up the co-op mode whenever he has time. Although he took a month break due to warrant officer training out of state, I believe. I'd play the normal PvP modes, but I utterly despise playing Conquest in Battlefield. Never liked it once. Rush is the superior mode for gigachads with Zilla-like jawlines. Game's mad fun though. Some of the heroes in that game are disgusting, and they've been nerfed from what they used to. Palp's Chain Lightning is orgasmic right now, and in the old days, he used to be able to wallbang people with it, even behind their spawns. And he was one of the only characters in the game that could self-heal. Just ridiculous. Good God, I wish I was there for it. Other than that, I don't have much else going on at the moment. I'm almost done with my Fascinator model kit, only got the weapons and hip thrusters to go. Like one good session for a few hours if that. Might put up pictures of it in the community tab if there's any interest in that. EVO happened last weekend, I only watched Street Fighter and even then I wasn't exactly paying much attention to it. There was a kid that was tearing up top 8 and that was cool to see. And Sagat came out like immediately afterwards, but I don't even think I'm gonna buy him. Guess I'm just looking forward to the Battlefield 6 beta coming up soon. There's also a new Vegas mod pack I've been eyeing, Wildcard I think it's called. Could be a bit of fun to go back to that game with a bunch of overhauls. I just don't want to give Nexus any kind of support. I also don't want to spend hours hitting install and... oh my god. I also don't want to spend hours hitting install and accept on 1,400 different mods. So I'm in a bit of a pickle on that. Anyways, final boss. Or final bosses. Shoot the elevator a bit to get the minigun guy off your ass. Then focus down one of the bonded pair. They got a gimmick here where to finish them off you need to down them, then walk up and melee execute them to fully finish them off. Otherwise, they stand back up and continue fighting. It can be a bit confusing to figure that out since it's not a mechanic you used before and there's no prompt when you approach them. The final boss, if you have a Gauss gun with enough ammo, you don't even need to think about how to beat him. Just lock on and burst him down 3 times, easy life. If you don't, then it's a bit of an issue. The reason being is that his 3rd health bar is just enough that unless you're playing perfectly, you cannot break his armor in time before it regens with anything in the room. The tar is like 2 bullets off, and it's just enough to make you think you could do it in theory, but you can't. So you might spend hours attempting it and just being infinitely annoyed. And the laser rifle's DPS is so poor that even in the Gauss mode you need 3 shots to break it, but that takes longer than the regen window. You have a shotgun in the room with you, but that thing is beyond garbage, and the last place you want to be is next to the final boss who also has a shotgun, but he's playing Vegas 2, and your shotgun's from Halo 2. Also known as Dick and Balls Bad. So you would think, oh shit, am I just bricked here? GG, fuck my life? Well, no. There is a bit of a trick, but it's subtle, and kind of inconsistent. The boss man has an attack that shoots up nades into the air, and you can hack and defuse them. You can do this a couple of times and end up noticing that the majority of the time you do this, no nades show up on the ground to pick up. So you end up incentivized to ignore this mechanic, continue trying anything and everything to break this schmuck's armor with these restrictions, then go on to make poor decisions that have ramifications for the rest of your life, all because some dickhead with a bad haircut gave you a hard time in some old shooter. However, On the third phase, the nades work correctly, and you can pick them up. 3 of them is all you need to finally bust through his armor. To get to that point, hug the cover in the center of the room. Everywhere else is a toss-up on whether you're getting nailed to a cross by the man's minigun. And there's not much else complexity to be had here. Most you got to contend with is moving cover up and down, but in this room anyways, the center moves so slowly that you can counter-hack it and bring it back up before it lowers enough to even expose you. The bosses in this game are really weak all around. I can't say a single one of them is well designed. On the other hand, I also can't say that any one of them lasts long enough to be a serious issue or a negative mark against the game. None of them have any kind of presence or character. I think the final boss is only slightly memorable due to being your NPC partner that talked to you in a good amount of the cutscenes. Maybe the game could have shipped with no bosses. Sometimes you don't need to have a single target serve as a capstone fight, you know? There's numerous ways that could have made a final fight interesting. Honestly, I would have taken a large room with a bunch of waves of mooks over this. Oh yeah, before I forget, on phase change he can backfire hack you. It works differently for him. You get flashbangs, and he unloads your current gun. Sometimes, he may also steal all of your ammo for said gun, for no fucking reason. It's fucking stupid. Like I'm not already getting screwed enough and fucked up the ass over here as it is. But now he just randomly nicks my ammo when I'm already doing fuck all for damage? Piss off. And yes, as you can tell, I'm still quite mad about it. Like I've alluded to earlier, I've spent hours on this fight, desperately trying to figure out a method to break his last bar of armor, and the nades are the only thing that I could discover. When I came here casually before I started the challenge run, he just nicked all my fucking ammo from my Gauss gun multiple times. I thought I was going crazy at first, but no, he just steals your goddamn ammo. Anyways, when you unload on him and his final health bar drops here, you're done with the game. GG, you've done it. Easy life. To put a bow on things, this is a pretty good game. Not a great game, just good. Still fun to play. However, if you do what I do here, it can be quite jank and somewhat frustrating to get through. I don't think you should judge a game when it's taken to its extremes and played in a manner that's clearly not intended, so I still give it high marks. Again, producing it was really hard this time around. Even so, I'm glad I got to showcase it. I just think that the bosses in this game kinda suck, they're very blasé and bland, and your dude gets his ass beat too many times in cutscenes, but that's such a minor complaint in the grand scheme of things. As for what's next, I got no idea, man. This wasn't what I originally had in mind, and I'm stalling out on everything I touch at the moment. I can't even bring myself to finish Okami right now, and that game is just... it's an experience, you should play it. Looks fucking cool. Regardless, thank you for giving me some time in your day, and I'll see you Starside.